Welcome to another episode of Organizing Untold. I have another guest here with us today. Our guest is Shakeira. Thank you, Shakeira, so much for joining in on today's podcast episode. If you could, please let us know who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sierra, for having me today. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Um, so, my name is Shakeira Tennant. I am the community manager for Chase Bank for JP Morgan Chase. But more importantly, I am a wife and a mother. So, I find extreme value in having this conversation and diving deep on organizing and all the things that fall under that category. So, thank you for having me today.
You're welcome, and I love it. I love it. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. Of what does organizing look like for you currently in your life today?
So, I I think I have a touch of OCD, to be honest with you. So, organizing to me means that everything has a home. And I know that's cliche. I know people say that all
Mhm.
the time, but if your items or your things have a place, they have a home, then that creates, to me, a sanctuary where you feel just not pressure. You don't feel that pressure of, you know, feeling cluttered, whether physically cluttered or, even mentally cluttered. I find that when things aren't in place, it weighs on me.
Yeah, yeah, and even just like going back to what you said about it being a sanctuary, it's almost like your safe haven in a sense.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a no one that I've talked to before, like previously on the podcast, has talked about it as a sanctuary, but I feel like that's a perfect word for it, to be able to just uh, describe it in a sense.
Hmm.
And so, in terms of how organizing allows you to be able to have everything, have a home for everything, is that something that you've always done, or at what point in life did you feel like that came about?
I'd like to say I've always done it, but there's levels to it, right? So I
Yeah.
think I've definitely honed in on becoming more efficient with my organizing skills. And I will tell you, a lot of my inspiration, I think I shared this with you before, a lot of my inspiration came from The Minimalist. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, they have two documentaries out right now that really focus on living a life with less,
Mhm.
and not maintaining a lot of stuff. So, as a kid, my mom always, created this environment where we needed to be tidy and organized. I remember spring cleaning, cleaning walls, cleaning baseboards. Like we always had a clean space.
Yeah.
But organizing is different than clean, right? It's part of it. They
Yes.
go hand in hand, but you can have a clean space, but it could be very unorganized or in disarray. And so to
Hmm.
me, what I've been able to hone in on is, again, making sure that the items I do have a place. In that,
Hmm.
I will tell you, surfaces are a big deal to me. I don't know if you've ever, you have, because you're the professional, you're the subject matter expert in this. But
Yeah.
to me, clean surfaces is the start to having a clean and organized space. If
Yeah.
your surfaces are clean, you're more motivated to keep those surfaces clean, and it just creates this sense of peace
Yeah.
for me
That's
anyway.
true. That's true. And just to go elaborate further on for the audience, so for anyone who's listening in or anyone who is watching, can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean when you say clean surfaces? Like for them, could you give an example for someone who may not know
Absolutely.
what that means?
So for me, I'll take my kitchen for example. If I cook or if my husband cooks, because kudos to him, he does cook. If either one of us cooks, like it is important to me before we close the kitchen, so to speak,
Yeah.
that we are that we make sure the countertop is completely clear of any clean dishes. Like I like to put my dishes away at night,
Yeah.
or there are no just random things on the counter. There is something to be said about coming downstairs and going into my kitchen and seeing
Mm-hmm.
Nothing on my counter that's not supposed to be there. So
Yeah.
kitchen is just a small example. We have a dining room table as well, that if we're not careful, that could become a catch-all. So I'm very
Mm-hmm.
cognizant.
Yeah.
Like if I see something on my table that doesn't belong, it stands out to me because my behavior is to keep my surfaces clean.
Yeah.
Bathroom is another great example. When you get ready every day, like I have to allot an extra few minutes to
Mm.
tidy up my space once I get done. And, sometimes it's a miss, but a
Yeah.
lot of the times, I've been able to keep my bathroom looking clean just by keeping the surfaces clean
Mm.
and clutter
Yeah.
free.
Agreed. That makes that, yeah. I hope that makes sense to the people who are listening and who are watching, because I would definitely agree that it is true. That's something that even I do personally for my own home. Anytime I'm in any area of my room, I'm trying to, at the same time of making sure that I'm like at the same time of putting whatever I'm using in front of me, anything I'm not using, I'm putting it away to where it's supposed to go, so that I'm not constantly in my head thinking of that thing that's maybe to the side of me that I'm not using. It's almost like you're taking up the mental space by keeping those things on the counter, and you'll be thinking about it if it's not away, if it's not like you said, put away, and
Correct.
then when you come into the space, it's almost like it's a sense of peace that comes over you in a sense. Would you say that
Right.
the same?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
there are times where, if I leave my house in a hurry, if I have somewhere to
Mm-hmm.
go and I leave, my bathroom is a good example. If I leave, my
Yeah.
makeup on the counter or different products that I'm using, in my mind, I could be driving to wherever I'm supposed to go, my destination, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, one, I hope my husband doesn't, have to deal with my clutter in our bathroom, even though we have two sinks. But, in addition to that is, I know that when I get home, I'm going to have to clean up my mess. So I really try to avoid that by cleaning as I go. I'm
Yeah.
huge on cleaning as I go. Kitchen is a great example. Cooking.
Mhm.
I've gotten to the point where as I'm cooking, I'll have a big bowl, and all of my, like, as I'm cutting veggies and things like that, I put it all in that one bowl so that I'm
Mhm.
dumping into my trash as few times as possible. Like, I'm real big on efficiency, but
Yeah.
with my dishes, cleaning as I go. That's what
Yeah.
organization looks like to me. When I sit down to eat dinner, I don't want to
Yeah.
sit down to a ton of dirty dishes on my counter or even filled up in my sink. So in
Mhm.
order to avoid that, I clean as I go.
I love it. I love it. That's, like you said, it's so efficient to take that approach because you're
Hmm.
saving yourself time, you're saving yourself mental space, and then you get the job done quicker at the end because once you're done cooking, you get to enjoy the food and you don't have that much left to put up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like on to the next thing or on to bed, on to whatever is next after you eat. So, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
agreed.
aesthetically pleasing, because like when you think about when you go out to dinner, if you go to a restaurant, you're not typically going to a space where there's a ton of clutter and things on the table. So
Yeah.
I like to, I'm very visual, so I enjoy when my space can be aesthetically pleasing, and I'm a
Mhm.
little unsettled when it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about how organizing is applied to your life in terms of home life, and in terms
Hmm.
of your bathroom, kitchen areas as examples. So when it comes to work, how do you feel like organizing comes into play? Like, what does that look like for you?
So I laugh about that because I am the queen of stickies. Don't give me a stack of stickies because I will take notes and I'll have stickies everywhere. It's what I would call organized chaos. But
Mm,
honestly, it's kind of the same principle. A behavior is a
mm,
behavior. Starting with
yeah,
clean surfaces, I like to have my desk top clean.
yeah,
And when I do have my stickies, they're
mhm,
usually pretty well contained in a specific area to where, one, I wouldn't want someone to walk into my office and see a ton of clutter, and
yeah,
that's something that I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I noticed that when I go into different businesses, if I go into a
Yeah.
place of business and there's stuff everywhere, it just gives off unorganized. And I think that translates into how efficient your operation is. If you're not
Yeah.
organized, things may get lost in the shuffle. You may not follow up in a timely
Yeah.
manner the way you're supposed to, or you may forget something. So I think, having those same behaviors at work as I do at home with clean
Yeah.
surfaces and just being very structured. I'm also the queen of to-do lists, and I
Mhm.
write things down. And if I don't write it down, I put it in my Word document on my computer. Just
Yeah.
that is a way for me to be organized as well, because I have a lot of moving parts in my life. But if
Right.
I contain the things that I need to get done, it really does help me. And one last thing, I remember someone saying years ago to me, because
Mhm.
a long time ago, I used to think, oh, it's all about prioritizing your schedule. No, you schedule your priorities. And
Mhm.
that to me helps keep organization a priority.
I love it. I love it. And when you say schedule your priorities, touch on that just a little bit more for us. What does that look like for you currently? Is it like you have the calendar out and then your priorities come in first and you're scheduling those in and then anything else falls after, or what does that look like in your life?
So for me, going back to that to-do list, to be honest
Mhm.
with you, I keep a notebook with me. In fact, I'll spare you all my running total of my to-do list. But because there again are so many different things that I'm doing, sometimes at one time, and multitasking isn't always a good thing. I
Yeah.
keep my notebook so I can write down things so that I don't forget. Right.
Yeah.
Then I go
Yeah.
back to that and I will assess that list to see what is priority, what is time sensitive, what do I need to get done before this other item on my list. So
Yeah.
I look at my list of things that they're all important, but again, they may not have the same weight of importance. So I go
Mhm.
through and that's how I schedule my priorities. If it's a huge time sensitive priority, it gets
Yeah.
moved up to the top of the list.
Yeah. That makes sense. And
Hmm.
for anyone who may be listening in and who may have the mindset of, "Who, this is a lot. This sounds like a lot to do, a lot that I don't know if I'm ready for yet." What would you say to them? Like, how would you tell them how would you explain enjoying the process of it all to be able to stay organized, get done what needs to get done, but also still have fun and enjoy while you're doing it?
So I would say one, you have to start somewhere. I know
Yeah.
we've all heard, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. You just have to start somewhere. But I would challenge people to go to that place where they've been in both a very organized situation and when they've been in a not so organized situation, whether it's cluttered or
Yeah.
it doesn't bring or evoke peace, right?
Mhm.
There's a different feel for both of those scenarios, and I would utilize that. I would leverage those experiences to motivate you to keep an
Mhm.
organized and clean space. And part of the messaging with the minimalist is living a meaningful life with less, right? And
Yeah.
part of that to me means that you are maintaining your space. You're not maintaining a lot of stuff, which allows you to enjoy more of life's experiences, and that's important to me. I don't want to
Mhm.
spend my weekends cleaning my house or maintaining stuff, unnecessary stuff. Like I've got to do the basics, but
Yeah.
I don't need to have a ton of collectibles or
Mhm.
I've heard people use the word tchotchkes. I don't want to maintain a lot of stuff that I have to dust or
Mhm.
clean in order to keep my space clean when I could be out enjoying things with my family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost in a sense like enjoying the moments more than you're enjoying the items and
The
materials.
materials. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yep.
Yeah. I get that. And I would definitely agree. We're on the same page there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when it comes to the minimalism and the documentaries that you going back to the beginning of our discussion, the documentaries that you mentioned, what are some things that stuck out of those documentaries that have now been applied to your own life? Is there anything on top of just like starting with the cleaning the surfaces, or is that kind of like the basis of it, and then you go from there?
There are two things that stand out to me from the documentaries. One is that um, the average household has about 300,000 items. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff to maintain, right?
yeah,
So when I think about things that I bring into my house, I challenge myself, and it's not perfect, but I challenge myself to say, okay, if I'm bringing 4 or 5 things into my house, what am I getting rid of that I'm not utilizing?
yeah,
That I can, clear out the space and not, build and have clutter in the future clutter, right? So
yeah,
knowing that statistic. The other thing is, along those lines of bringing things into my house, have you heard about your fantasy self and how you'll buy things for your fantasy self? Like, for example, I we ski once a year. I
yeah,
don't need to go out and buy a ton of ski gear and all this stuff. Some things I'm efficient with, I can rent. There are some
hmm,
basic things that I purchase, but if I'm not if I don't bowl on a regular enough basis,
hmm,
then why would I go out and buy bowling shoes, bowling balls? It's just extra stuff that's just gonna sit in my house and collect dust, right?
yeah,
So not buying things for my fantasy self, who I think I want to be. And then the other thing is 3 words that really stood out to me from the minimalist documentary, and that's the 3 most dangerous words in consumerism or in our culture is just in case. We keep
yeah,
things in our houses just in case, but how often does that just in case ever materialize? When does that actually happen? It
yep,
happens so rare that if it won't cost you a ton of money to replace it, if it's not something that you're using on a regular basis, get rid
mhm,
of it. Get
yeah,
rid of it. So those are a few things that really stood out and motivated me and inspired me to do better when it comes to, how many things I bring in my house, how I get rid of things, and just not buying for the person I think I want to be, but just, staying in the moment.
yeah. Those are good, and even just to add to those, two things here. One, I would say like the 2020 rule kind of elaborates what you the last thing that you mentioned,
Hmm.
where if it takes 20 minutes or less for you to buy it and it's
Hmm.
less than $20, then you shouldn't be keeping it. And so that
Exactly.
just in case, that throws that out the window, because if you can go and get it in 20 minutes or less, or spend $20 on it or less, then you don't need the just in case.
You don't need
So
the just in case, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to ask is just in terms of when you bring things in, you know that you have to take things out in order to prevent yourself from having this cluttered space. So that brings me to ask, does that mean that you intentionally uh, declutter or intentionally organize every so often? Like, do you have a schedule for that every 2 to 3 months, or what does that look like?
I would love to say I'm so efficient that I have a schedule for it, but I don't. I don't. But I will tell you, at the beginning of the year, I usually do a really big purge. I actually play the minimalist game,
Yeah,
and I usually involve a couple of my friends where we'll send each other pictures where you get rid of, for the first 30, 31 days of the year, you get rid of one item on the first day. On the second day, you get rid of 2 items. Or by the 10th day, you're getting rid of, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it I want to say it ends up being close to 500 items that you get rid of throughout the month.
yeah,
But, so at the beginning of the year is typically when I do a pretty big purge. But if on a random day I'm at home and I recognize that, okay, this is looking a little cluttered to me or a
yeah,
little extra, or if I see something and I'm like, I haven't used that or worn that in 2 3 years, why am I still hanging on to it? So it's not a schedule, but it just kind of depends on what's going on at that stage in my life.
love that. Love that. And that accountability is such a huge piece. The fact that you said that your
Yes.
friends did the challenge with you, it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
you can hold them accountable, they can hold you accountable to make sure that you all are staying on the same page of doing that purge. and remaining on a journey towards becoming more organized. So that is a huge thing to have. And not just for
Yeah.
organizing, for just any part of life, accountability is
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah, accountability, and I'm also competitive, low key. So, you know, I want I want to win the challenge. You know, I don't get anything for it, but I do
Yeah.
get to purge, and it really does feel good when you let things go that uh, don't spark joy. And I'm sure everybody knows who I'm referring to. And I didn't really get
Mhm.
so deep into her method, but you know, I do have a the concept, and I know. Marie Kondo, she's really big on, touch it, feel it. Does it spark joy? I didn't really
Yeah.
do that, but there is something to be said about ridding yourself of unnecessary weight.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Shakir, for joining in. This was such a great conversation, being able to talk about organizing with you, your organizing journey, and what that looks like now versus what it used to be, and how it can continue to grow pretty much based on the things that you're doing to stay decluttered, to stay uncluttered, and just be able to have a home and a space that you enjoy and that sparks joy in a sense. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I
And if I
did.
could just, oh, I was going to
Oh,
say, if
no,
I could
go
just
ahead.
add
Yeah,
one more thing in
yeah.
addition to that, it's just, it is a process. You know, it's not like, I've got 150,000 things in my house and that's it. You constantly are
Mhm.
bringing things into your home, maybe not on a daily or weekly basis, but, if you bring things into your home on a monthly basis and you're not getting rid of things, then by the end of the year, you're going to have an accumulation of more things than you started with. And if you do that year after year, then you'll find yourself with a lot more stuff than you really need or than you started with, prior to. So I would just say it is a process. I haven't arrived, but I am chasing minimalism like nobody's business because I appreciate the experiences that I can have, not just for my life, but also for my family, my children.
Yeah,
There's nothing worse than not doing something with your kids because you feel like you gotta, declutter or do laundry or, there's a time and place for all those things. But I want to spend
yeah,
my time creating those memorable experiences with my family as opposed to cleaning and maintaining stuff.
yeah. That's definitely true. Thank you for adding that piece in. That it's a
Yeah.
process. It's something that you go through, and it's not a one and done. It's always going to be a journey in a sense.
Yes.
And even just one quick question
Hmm.
to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more or expound on that. Right now, with you doing the things that you do to be able to enjoy life with your family and with your kids, like, do you feel like organizing and making sure that your space isn't cluttered is something that is starting to rub off onto your husband and your kids?
So I will tell you that I'm fortunate that my husband has his own baseline of being clean and organized, and actually he probably was some of my inspiration because he's definitely like keep things decluttered, and I will say he would probably lead that initiative in terms of getting rid of things. Like he lets things go like nobody's business. So he is a source of inspiration for me, but I
That's
do think that my behavior also keeps him encouraged to keep going. My
that's good.
children,
Yeah.
it's kind of scary what I'm creating in them because honestly they are surprisingly, particularly my 14-year-old daughter,
Mhm.
very meticulous about
Mhm.
her room and just how
Yeah.
organized she is to the way that she folds her clothes and puts them away.
Yeah.
And I'm not a hard taskmaster. I didn't force her to do it, but I really
Yeah.
tried to lead by example. But she definitely a little more than our son. But our daughter, sometimes I'm like, I need to make sure that I live up to these expectations and really truly be the example for her to follow because she's on it. She's very clean, she's very organized, and I'm proud of, just that she's taken this behavior, you know, throughout her life.
That's so good. That's good. Well,
Yeah.
I look forward to just seeing the journey for you and for your family with organizing going forward. I did want to ask one last question. What organizing, if you had an organizing tip that you use currently, that you would offer to the audience for them to use as well, what would that organizing tip be?
I have to go back to what I said at the very beginning. If you start by keeping your surfaces clear and free of clutter,
Mhm.
that is motivating in and of itself to do more. And then if you do that on a regular enough basis, then that allows you to focus more on maybe areas that are not necessarily clean or clutter, not unclean, but clutter free. If
Yeah.
you if you maintain it, if you do it as you go, then you can move on to other areas of your home. So the surfaces, that's the biggest thing for me, because when you walk into a place or your home or your office
Mhm.
and you see that the surfaces, the counters, the tops are clear, then
Yeah.
you'll keep it that way.
Hmm.
You're more apt to not leave clutter. But if things are already cluttered, what's one or two more items?
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, it starts with the surfaces. I'm big on the
Yeah.
surfaces.
That's true. Well, you heard it here, and the surfaces starts with the surfaces. So go ahead and take that challenge, everyone, to start clearing off your surfaces, and then go on to the next step of the process and step of the journey with organizing. Again, Shakira,
Absolutely.
thank yeah, Shakira, thank you so much for joining in today's episode, and I look forward to continuing to stay in touch about organizing, but just overall, of course, we'll be staying connected and going to
Absolutely.
run together, Mad Mouse.
Yes. See you tonight.
I won't see you
Maybe.
tonight, but
Oh, well,
yeah,
I'm glad I got a chance to spend this time with you today. And,
agreed.
thank you for having me and allowing me to share some of the things that have worked for me. And it's also great to learn from you. I'm proud of you and your business and what
Thank you
you,
so much.
bring to people, because it is life changing. It really is. If you've seen hoarders,
Yeah, yeah.
it's life changing, and what you're doing, it changes the trajectory of people's lives. And so I appreciate the partnership and allowing me to share just a tidbit.
You're so welcome, and thank you so much for that as well. All right.
You got
Well,
it.
I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right.
You got it. Thank you, Sierra. Take care,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for another episode of Organizing Untold. I hope you all gained so much from that episode, from today's episode with Shakira. Um, and so much to go back and take notes, just listen to. And even today, I challenge you to go forward and start clearing off your surfaces, like Shakira said. Start with 1 day and then do it 2 days and then 3 days and keep going forward from there. I promise you that you'll see a change. You'll notice a difference in how you feel, and what your space looks like, and just what your mind feels like, what you feel like on the inside and outside as well. So again, this is Organizing Untold, where I help busy business owners and those who work between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. become confident with organizing. I am your host, Sierra Hamilton, and that is another episode that we have here today. This is an extension of Nicely Placed Organizing, where I organize for first time homebuyers, borderline hoarders, and full time artists with art studios and workspaces to help them feel less overwhelmed, remove the chaos that they have in their lives, and meet their deadlines and get out of the house on time. We have an all in one organizing package where there's so much value to be able to help you fulfill the tasks and fulfill the life giving uh, needs that you need to get accomplished to be the best version of yourself. So, we are so excited to be able to provide this all in one package for you. Feel free to go to nicelyplacedorganizing.com. This is where you'll be able to contact us to find out more about that all in one package, and send us a DM, send us a contact sheet so that we can get you signed up and get you booked for that all in one organizing package. Again, there's so much value in being able to remove the chaos that the clutter is causing in your life, help you meet deadlines and get out of the house on time, and also help you feel less overwhelmed in your life overall. These are things that are going to help you be able to live a stress-free life. And if you haven't been doing it already, you are missing out on so much joy and so much more that life has to offer you. So go ahead and book that session so that we can help you experience life for what you can truly see it as. Thank you again for joining in for today's episode, and we'll be talking with you soon. Have a good day.